We're going to go on to our next speaker now. And one of the features, one of the hallmarks really of a Get It conference is something that we started in, I think, our very first year. It might have been our second, which is a segment that we call 5 Minutes With. And the idea behind 5 Minutes With is we can't tell you everything about someone in 5 short minutes, but it is remarkable how much we can all learn from one another in just 5 minutes. And so in keeping with our Sydney theme for the moment, and with hopes that our technological gremlins are out of the way and we can have a seamless transition to our next guest, I'm going to bring on board now Kate Schlosser. I talked about those of us who are in the family, as it were, with this being kind of a family reunion for those of us in genetic epilepsy. So one of my family members, so to speak, is someone I just met this year, Kate Schlosser, who has a daughter with KCNQ2. May I introduce us all now to Kate Schlosser for 5 minutes with her.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks so much for having me on here. And I'm so sad we didn't get to give the hug. And
thank you. We're good.
Thanks for letting me join this and kind of talk about my perspective and talk about the beautiful little girl who is my background, Olivia. So Olivia is just turned 2 in March. She has KCNQ2. I'll leave the definition of KCNQ2 to the very esteemed doctors and researchers we have in this meeting. I think as a parent, very simply, it's a pretty crappy place in the brain to have a gene variation. But it has meant so much to our family and such a huge life-changing event for something that is so incredibly tiny. So I'll spend a little bit of time talking about that. And, you know, happy to, I don't know if we're doing questions at the end of this, but happy to talk to anyone about it in more detail. To be honest, the trauma of her newborn stage is actually still pretty hard to talk about. But I guess she presented at 2 days old, a beautiful baby born, completely, you know, everything was normal, pregnancy great. She had started to have seizures on day 2. They actually just looked like little odd movements. So all of her stats seemed fine. We were a little bit concerned when we were transferred to special care nursery, but we thought it would be okay. They monitored her and everything seemed all right. It was only when the doctors started to observe it themselves and she started to have more and more of these episodes that we were transferred to the neonatal intensive care unit at another hospital. And I think that's when things started to get a little bit more serious, a little bit more scary. We had lots and lots of tests that all came back clear, MRIs, lumbar punctures, lots and lots of blood tests. She was hooked up to something called a brains monitoring system, little tiny needles in her skull that meant that we couldn't hold our beautiful little newborn for quite a few days. And I think with all of the tests that came back negative, you know, our hopes are maybe growing that this was not anything too major. And, you know, one of the nurses was just reassuring me that sometimes children just grow out of these things, that maybe it was the reflux condition that had been raised at one stage. And that was actually a little bit after that when we were called into the room to have the meeting with all of the doctors and the neurologists and the social worker, because her EEG results had come back and they showed a burst suppression pattern. That pattern is something that we have been told not to Google. And the reason you're told not to Google it is because it's described as the most catastrophic brain activity pattern that a newborn can have. And I think with that meeting, pretty much our hopes fell apart. You know, we have been hoping she'd get through this. We've been hoping this and hoping that. And I think that definitely destroyed a lot of that hope. And that was a really, really hard time in the NICU, surrounded by lots of tiny, beautiful little babies. Our enormous 5-kilo girl with a very loud lungs was really struggling. And it was a very, very hard time because we still didn't know why. I really didn't want to listen to the wonderful social worker telling me that, regardless of these results, she would live a happy and fulfilling life. I wasn't in a place to hear that then. I just wanted to grab my little baby and run out of there, to be honest. But obviously we couldn't do that. And instead we spent the next few weeks in the NICU learning how to feed her. The doctors were still trying to find a medication combination that would help stop the seizures. And we were just trying to deal with everything going on. That was the hardest time, and we did question a lot then. But to be honest, fast forward a few weeks from there, and thank goodness the doctors had found a medication combination that worked. Livia's seizures stopped, which we're so lucky for, and we know that we are incredibly lucky to have had that happen. And we were able to bring her home. Now, home is myself, my husband Thomas, and our 6-year-old daughter Anna, who is very, very excited to welcome home her little baby sister. And very proud to show her off and explain what the NG tube was, and explain that she had a very special brain pattern to all of her little friends at preschool at the time. So for us, getting the KCNQ2 diagnosis didn't come for a few weeks after that. And although it was definitely hard, it was also a little bit of a relief. We knew why. Finally, we had something. Well, I had something I could research. I'm a reader, so it was an opportunity for me to learn a little bit more and not be in this grey world of uncertainty and hopelessness. And as a de novo case, I guess, to be very frank, it was also a realization that it wasn't something that we had done. We just won at a really, really bad lottery that no one wants to win at. Olivia is 2 now. I'd love to be able to say to everyone that, everything's great now. And in many ways it is. She's gorgeous. She has a beautiful smile and a really cute giggle. She babbles quite a bit. She can sit upright when she's placed. She can't roll. She can't sit herself up. She can't stand herself up. She doesn't crawl. She doesn't talk. But her determination is incredible. She loves taking little steps when we hold her up. She can bear weight in her legs. Her seizures have remained under control, and she is so interested in everything going on around her. She is amazing, and we love her to bits. But of course, we still struggle. I think we've struggled mostly with what her future will look like. And that's something, because KCNQ2 causes seizures, it also causes developmental delays. I think the problem with the word delay is that it indicates that she might catch up one day. And I think for me, it's that slowly accepting that it's not so much developmental delays as it's her own developmental path. And she herself is going to define what that looks like. And that might be a spectrum of what that could be. Part of the reason why I'm able to be here today and actually talk about what's happened and share our story is because I found a community of other parents with KCNQ2. And I'm so grateful for the people who set that up, Sarah and Scotty and Carolyn, because that has given me a glimpse into the future, and it's not all doom and gloom. It's meant that I can share what we're going through and have actually found people who have gone through it before. And that ability to be able to do that has made such a difference. It does open you up to what the future can look like, and that can be confronting in some ways. It can also mean that while I may have accepted that I can't compare Olivia to other neurotypical children of her time, I've gone into this dreadful cycle of comparing her to other children with KCNQ2 around the same age. So that's my own journey of accepting that, got to stop doing that. There's always going to be that comparison, and I have to get to the point, and we are slowly getting to the point where Olivia is herself, and we celebrate that, and we celebrate what she can do, but we also just celebrate her and her own little way of living. I think the other thing that I've found important and something that I struggle with is the advocating for Olivia, advocating for us as a family. It's not something that's come naturally to me. I am quite quiet and I would prefer just to let things happen. But in this case, you're thrust into this world and you're often put in a position where you have to advocate for your child or for yourself, for the therapies that she needs with NDIS, for understanding more about what's going on and questioning the doctors and questioning what the best medication might be and questioning, what she can be involved in, and also pushing back if things are too hard. And we always want the best for our children. And I think listening to her in a little way, and being able to advocate for her and say, and sometimes, no, that's too much, is really, really difficult. But it's something that I look to other parents before me who have done it, and learn from them and learn how to do that. Our day-to-day, Olivia is in lots of therapies. She does hydrotherapy, OT, speech, physio, conductive education. There is a lot out there, and I think we're still finding our feet in the best ones that are best for her, and how best to manage having fun with her, going to therapies, giving her rest time, and managing all that around the rest of our family, walking the dog, obviously our beautiful 6-year-old Anna, and finding time also to connect with my husband. And there's a lot to do, and sometimes it can feel like a big to-do list, and so trying to find that balance is not easy, but it's something that I think we need to talk about ways that other people have done it, and share our own knowledge to get there. Olivia did an intensive therapy this year at Napa Centre, which I found incredible. It was really, really helpful. We didn't get a breakthrough miracle moment with her. She, to be honest, screamed for most of her sessions there. But moving forwards, we've seen such a great change in what those therapies have done. And it's, I think, helped her so much, and helped us have those tools to work with her at home as well. That will make a difference. Sarah,
this has been fantastic. No, not at all. This is fantastic. And as we wrap up this particular segment, I wanted to say a couple of things. First, Kate, I want to say thank you so much for sharing your journey and for keeping it real. This is real. And that means that there's sad moments and there are great triumphs, but it's a complicated journey, and it's one we didn't sign on for, but that we're making our way through. The next thing I want to say is that I am struck by the way in which we pass the baton when it comes to helping the next children. Just as there have been people, and thank you for mentioning Scotty and me, but just as there have been people who were that for you, I promise you, Kate, you and Olivia and your family are that for the people coming behind you. This is a big baton race. We're all part of it. And it's a tricky and sometimes hairy path, but one with the opportunity to see some sights that nobody ever imagined that we would see. So thank you, Kate Schlosser, for joining us from Sydney. And I very much am counting on that hug in person. I will, as soon as they let me, fly to Sydney to get it. I'm counting on sunshine. It's cold and rainy here. Thank you again, Kate.
Thanks. Thank you.